right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're coming to you a little bit later today, but we have a great guest for you. We've talked a lot about good things happening in music education. Today, we're talking about what's happening at the university level. Joining us today is Dr. Jonathan Helmick. He is a professor of music at Slippery Rock University. He's the director of bands there as well. Jonathan, great to have you here with us.
Great to be here. Absolutely.
And it's the end of finals week, right?
We are so close.
Yes.
This close.
So that stress you might see coming from him is not just because they've moved to online instruction for the past month and a half. It's because it's also finals week. So
we're in the heat of grading. Yes.
We'll give you a pass on the stress bubbles coming out. We've talked a lot about what's happened at the K-12 level as far as music education, but I think it's really interesting of what's happened at the university level. K-12, a lot of schools have said, okay, we're just moving to pass-fail. Well, the university level is a whole different ballgame. That's not as easy to do. Kind of take us back here a month and a half, that moment when you hear, okay, we're going online, figure it out. Good luck, right?
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, it's been great at Slippery Rock University that there has been so much communication and so much transparency that's been coming from our administration and also, within the department working together. But around that time, we were moving on to, we were in spring break, right? And a lot of the issues that were concerning to us were like who would have instruments for ensembles and who wouldn't. For some of our classes, like low brass methods, I teach in addition to wind ensemble, concert band. I have applied conducting students and also applied euphonium students. And it was concerning because some students, go home, majors and non-majors, and maybe they don't take all of their books with them or they don't take all of their secondary instruments with them. And we had just gotten to that point in the semester where we transitioned after midterms. And for low brass methods, for example, the trombones are being checked back in. And when we get back, we're going to check out tubas and euphoniums. And that was a problem. So we had to build infrastructure. And we had to do so with technology, obviously, reacquaint ourselves with some synchronous technology and asynchronous technology, as well as figure out ways to get our students instruments. And one of the things, take low brass methods, it would be a good example of this, is we set up pickup dates, and students could come in, utilizing all of the social distancing, recommendations and whatnot. They would pick up instruments, fill out contracts in advance, email them to us. And for those students who weren't able to do so, then I would basically get instruments, put them in my car. I had Clorox wipes with me, and I was driving around Pennsylvania, dropping off tubas and euphoniums to people so that when we got back, after we had like a week of spring break and then 2 weeks to transition classes online, and then we were back in classes. But by doing so, I could get students the resources, and a lot of my colleagues were doing the same thing.
Right. And in fact, one of the things that we saw, and we'll link to it here in the show notes, is how your music ed students who are out there doing their field work were teaching online. And we'll link to that. And I know that those aren't necessarily, that wasn't under you, that was under one of your colleagues, but those students. So we saw some of the great stuff that Slippery Rock was doing to make the kind of help with the online stuff. Talk to us a little bit about actually teaching these courses then. Because you do some ensemble courses and then, you do some methods courses, but those are very different things. At least they were very different things in the world that we knew 2 months ago.
Absolutely. So one of the things, like there was actually, for a lot of people when they found out, oh my gosh, we're going to be completely online for the semester. There was a moment of time to mourn, the loss of future concerts and so on and so forth. There was no time to mourn. It was all about planning. I will mourn later, But in terms of teaching, I kind of prioritized what I was going to do, and I took the courses that I thought that I could transition online easily and started with those while plotting ideas for the other ones. So I started with applied euphonium. I discovered Zoom, worked on some of the settings and whatnot so that I could give the best value to the students that I could, right? In addition, I would record like exercises that we would normally do in our applied lessons in my office and post those online, like little warm-up buzzing exercises, so on and so forth, load those to our learning management system. That way the students could access them when they needed to. At the same time, for things like ensembles, understanding the structure of this, right? I teach wind ensemble and I teach concert band. So wind ensemble over here has mostly all majors, right? Most of the folks have their own instruments. They took their instruments home with them, with the exception, of course, of the percussionists. You know, they didn't take the timpani home, our harpists and that sort of thing. So for both groups, you know, concert band, mainly non-majors, most of them would use like lockers and stuff that we had, probably left their instruments on campus and we couldn't access those anymore. So I sent both groups a survey and I asked them what they would be interested in and sort of tailored that survey to each group. So with Wind Ensemble, I asked them if they wanted to do a recording project. I laid out some topics in wind band history and whatnot, as well as for concert band, I laid out some topics. And we built modules over the weeks according to what they picked. I was surprised at first that Wind Ensemble was not as interested in doing like one of the virtual bands and whatnot and putting a video together. And then I slowly started to realize, you know, there's a human element to this too, where there's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen. You know, you have to take that into account as well, right?
Right.
So both groups really chose to do the modules, and so the two topics that they picked that were similar were Voodoo in the Wind Band, which was a fun, you know, little thing to do, which I knew that was going to be, you know, a front runner, and also diversity in wind band literature. And they wanted to discover more about diverse composers. And part of that, they were already primed because we had been a part of the We Were Heard initiative, which basically is meant to amplify composers from a diverse background, their compositions, and we partner with, we're assigned a composer, we partner with them, and we premiere or record one of their pieces, whatever the case may be. So I think they were already interested in that topic since we were working on it in rehearsal anyways. So we did things like that. I also used, are you familiar with Flipgrid at all?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, yeah. So I tried to, you have the content portion, right? As a university teacher, I'm trying to figure out how I am going to create value, right, in what we're doing. We can no longer perform together in a shared space and do all of those things that we know and love as musicians, but we can still connect, we can still respond, we can still, you know, engage with music and literature. And that's really what this is about. However, having them engage with each other, that was a challenge. So I did have them post Flipgrid responses. I had to learn that pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. I also used Flipgrid. It's their augmented reality. I think it's their AR. I think it's augmented reality, but it's their AR QR codes where I would actually embed my lectures into the PowerPoint, and they would scan the QR codes when they got to a slide and I would talk about the elements on that slide. I would also have links in there to performances. It was really awesome. And in doing so, I introduced them to diversity in wind band literature, a little bit about music history in terms of the wind band. It was fun, actually, and it was really creative. And a lot of the students, I think, communicated, not I think, they did communicate that it enriched what they had done in rehearsals. And it's the things that we never get to really talk about in terms of like outside of like little conversations here and there about pieces, and then we move on to tuning, right? But here we could dive in and do a real deep dive into the history of the wind band. How cool is that, you know?
So, I mean, it's, I think people need to realize that just as the students had to pivot, you had to pivot, and you had to learn a lot through this whole process too, because just like they've never learned like this, you've never taught like this. So it's kind of that constant evolution, I would imagine, very quickly over the last month and a half. Fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was kind of fun in low brass methods. One of the emails I sent them in our revised, or it was a statement in the revised syllabus that I put out. I said, look, I have created all of these practice fingering quizzes for you because I can't, you know, necessarily be with you or grading these things, passing them back and forth. I did it fast, so there's probably going to be mistakes, you know. And I was honest with them. I said, So if you see something, you need to let me know. And I think being vulnerable like that in front of your students, I think it relaxed them a little bit, and it definitely relaxed me.
So yeah. Oh yeah, we were all entering the new world at the same time, and nobody knew what it was.
Sure.
Um, so kind of looking ahead, I ask everyone to maybe pull out their crystal ball
Hmm.
what do you think this looks like? Your role, what your I guess what a university music department might look like um, in the fall, but then even kind of just moving forward beyond that.
Sure. That's a big question and an exciting question. When I built the modules for Wind Ensemble and Concert Band, I started with a video by one of my heroes who I've never met, just sort of virtually, Benjamin Zander. Um,
Sure.
yeah, and he wrote a book with his wife Rosalind, called The Art of Possibility.
Great book.
Great book.
Yeah.
Excellent book. Excellent TED Talk, excellent lectures. Well, I opened with one of those lectures, and in that lecture that I picked, he said he gave a quote that was something along the lines of, "There's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing." Right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now we just have to dress for the weather, and there's a whole bunch of possibility out there. And for music ed students, for example, coming in, right? Um, for music ed students coming in, and for the ones that are here now, they're going to have to learn how to use this technology. They're going to have to learn how to engage with students, with colleagues from all over the world, which has been awesome to see happen,
Hmm.
during this pandemic. So many players in the field all uniting around a similar purpose, that purpose being the love of music, right? They're going to have to learn how to engage with each other, connect, network, and leverage technology to reach students who need it the most. Because that hasn't changed. That love and that
Right.
need for music hasn't changed. And so we adapt. But as a band director, as a music educator, we always adapt. I can't have
Right.
the concert here anymore. All right, I'll figure this out. I can put on a show in a broom closet. Fine.
Right.
Just tell me what time it's open.
Right.
And I think for students now, seeing their professors adapting to change, seeing their flexibility, demonstrating grit, I think that's inspiring. I think that being on the front lines of this now, the likelihood of something like this happening again, where maybe face-to-face interaction is interrupted 20 years from now. They've lived through it, they've seen it, and we're
Hmm.
starting to lay the infrastructure for being able to really adapt more quickly.
I think that's a fantastic point, and that's a fantastic point of view that you have. That they've got to be prepared for this. Yeah, it's a slight interruption now, but what do we learn from it? I mean, as a society, there's so many. What do we learn from it? But that's a fantastic perspective, and I think these students will take a lot from that. Um, so we're going to let you go because I know you still have some grades to do, and then you can
Some is an
just
understatement.
okay. Then you can just kind of relax, right? You can take the weekend off, I hope, because I'm
Oh yeah,
sure
sure.
it's been a crazy couple of months for you. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you later kind of even dissecting more. I think that folks will maybe see you at a PMEA conference at some point, dissecting a little bit more about how you did this, because it's really been great work. Thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you for the
Um,
invitation.
Absolutely. And everybody, you can join us again on Tuesday. We will have Lindsay Nova. She's executive director of the Three Rivers Young Peoples, it's Peoples, I believe, it's not persons, Three Rivers Young Peoples Orchestra. Check them out on social media. They've been doing a lot of great things to keep their students engaged, and we're gonna talk about that and what the ensemble is. And so hopefully when we're all back to normal, you can, if you have students who'd be interested in that, you can join. So join us on Tuesday for that.